Mark Caro, and welcome to episode 221 of Caropop. If you'd like to throw some support and help keep this thing going, please go to caropop.com. Record Store Day is coming on Saturday, April 18th, and this year we're offering the record store's perspective, plus tips on what's featured this year and how to get it. I could think of no one better to ask than Tim Peterson, who owns Squeezebox Books and Music in Evanston, Illinois. That's my friendly neighborhood record store, where I line up early each record store day. Squeezebox is pretty much my happy place. It's filled with records, books, and smart staffers who are always helpful and patient as an enthusiastic customer nerds out on some album. Squeezebox opened 15 years ago in a smaller location before moving about 8 years ago to a South Evanston corner, where it has expanded from 1 to 3 storefronts. For this conversation, Tim and I sat in the cramped back office of the second room, where he hands out records to those lined up on Record Store Day. Many of this year's RSD offerings already had been delivered and were alphabetized in stacked, sideways-facing record boxes beside us. The store received lots of copies of some albums, not so many of others. How does it all work? We dig in as Tim answers questions such as, does he get all the records from distributors or also directly from labels? Are the people who camp out overnight to be first-in-line flippers, that is, people who resell stuff, or just big fans? When Taylor Swift has a Record Store Day offering, as she does this year, does that help the sales of other records? Does Tim or anyone on staff ever set aside records for themselves? As a veteran record store owner, is he immune to FOMO? Is it better for the store to order too many or too few RSD records? For which records this year does he suspect that the demand will exceed the supply? Which records in this year's lineup may not be on your radar, but should be? When someone returns a defective RSD record, does the store get the money back from the distributor or just eat it? What percentage of Squeezebox's annual sales come from this Record Store Day and the one on Black Friday in November? And if Tim could change one thing about Record Store Day, what would it be? We also break down the different types of Record Store Day releases, such as live albums, picture discs and zoetropes, collections of demos, alternative versions and rarities, deluxe editions of previously released albums, first-time pressings of albums, represses of albums you've never heard of, and compilations of, for instance this year, power pop, ska, Stax B-sides, and Brazilian jazz. I always love talking records with Tim, especially when I'm getting a Record Store Day preview. Please enjoy this Caropop conversation with Tim Peterson. Hey Tim, welcome to Caropop.
Thank you, Mark. Great to be here.
I bought so many of my records here that for artists who I've interviewed, so now we come to the source of my habit and where I do all of this.
Well, all I can say is thank you very much.
How long have you been doing Record Store Day?
Record Store Day, honestly, I don't quite remember because we didn't start at the beginning. So I want to say roughly about 10 years. Maybe 2018. No, a little before that. Maybe 2016.
So that was when you were in the smaller store on
Exactly.
Chicago Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's 10 years, 2016.
Yeah. So how's it different in terms of like the number of records you order and the number of customers you get?
Well, it's certainly grown year after year, and response is different every single year based on the list. But simply, yeah, there are a lot more customers and a lot more interest, and still people haven't the slightest idea what it is. I forget and put up signage about RSD and put little notes out about RSD, and people are like, what on earth is that?
Right. But then there's a whole lot of other people who will be lined up around the corner and down the block who very much know what it is and will camp out here at what? 10 at night the previous night or something, 1 in the morning?
Yeah, so the earliest that anybody's ever shown up is about 6:30 the evening before. So they camped out whatever that. We open at 10 o'clock in the morning, so a good 24, 28 hours early.
Are these people you know who are doing that?
Yes, always, which is awesome.
And are these people who just buy a lot of records all year, or do you think that these are flippers who they want to be first and grab everything and then throw them up on
I think
eBay?
the whole thing about flippers is completely overrated. I think there are very, very few flippers. I really do. It's certainly not around here. Yeah, we just haven't seen that much action. There was a time period when there were a couple people that would come in the day after and try to load. They'd see what was happening on eBay, and they come in and they try to load up on those pieces. And you know what? The day after, it's fair game.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
you're not depriving anyone if you come in the day after. They're doing you a service by buying the stuff the day after.
Exactly.
But certainly, like later in the day on Record Store Day, there's a cohort of people who will go on Discogs and eBay, and it'll be like new RSD. It's like $99 for something you just bought for $30 or something. But then again, that's across the whole country, and there are obviously thousands of record stores. So maybe per store like yours and in this community, maybe it's not that big a deal.
No, I don't think the flippers are. I mean, one of the great things, for instance, last year we had about 100 people in line before we opened, and I always try to get out and greet people, or at least kind of wave. It's hard to greet 100 people individually, but just kind of check in and say hey and thank you. And I recognized almost everybody.
Wow. And usually you guys dress up too, so you have
Yes.
some sort of theme. Not for Black Friday because it's too cold, and it's not quite as big a deal. But for this one,
Yeah. So, like I said, we've been doing Record Store Day for about 10 years, and one of the things I was most concerned about when we did our first event was two things. One, if we had the product out on the floor, that everybody would, shoot for the rarest. If it was alphabetized, they'd shoot for the rarest thing first, and people would be kind of elbowing each other, trying to grab it, the few records that we had by that
that's
thing.
no good.
And so I tried to simply put the stuff behind the counter and had people stand in line and come up and ask for it one by one, which is the way we still do that. So that's less stressful for people, I think, than having it on the floor. I read a crazy thing yesterday when kind of going over the history of Record Store Day about a store that hid the records randomly through the store. So you had to hunt.
What?
Yes, not alphabetized, not organized. They just kind of put them around. So you'd have to dig through the store and find a gem. That's the dumbest idea I think I've ever heard. You want to have stuff organized in some fashion for sure. But so the other thing when we first started is I knew there's always going to be limited items. There's going to be things that 20 people want and we only get 2 copies of. People talk about this a lot. When the reverse is actually true for 90% of the product. 90% of the product, we have plenty of copies for everybody who's interested, and it'll usually hang out for even a solid week after we'll have quantities on stuff. But because of that stress of limited items, I thought, what can we do to relieve that if, 20 people come up or 18 people come up after we sold our 2? And I was like, we should dress in costume and make them laugh. That was
Right.
It was as simple as that. I was like, let's be something corny. And I wanted to go the polar opposite of the cool factor of record stores and Record Store Day. And so the very first year we dressed up as 1950s soda jerks. So we had little white short sleeve shirts and little white paper hats and aprons and black bow ties, and just went super nerdy.
I remember there was some Scooby-Doo stuff going on one year.
The Scooby-Doo is probably just last year?
Was it?
Or the year before. Anyway, Record Store Day fell on April 20th, so 420. And we thought, well, we have to do something thematic for 420. We generally don't do music-based. No, last year we dressed as David Byrne. So it was the year before that. It was 420. And we did want to be obvious and dress like Willie Nelson or Cheech and Chong. And so we thought, what would be really kind of obscure and fun? And we dressed as cartoon characters who may smoke.
Huh.
So we did Shaggy from Scooby-Doo and Goofy, which was an interesting one.
Yeah.
And Daria and Otto, the bus driver from The Simpsons.
So you came up with that yourselves, like these are the ones you guys think these are the dubious
Yes.
cartoon characters, basically.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I mean, the lines seem, because as someone who's been coming to this store and the other store for Record Store Day for many years, it does seem like the lines get longer earlier now. But it also depends a little bit on whether there's like a Taylor Swift thing in there.
Yeah, for sure. And again, there's a Taylor Swift record this year, a 7-inch. She's put out a number of 7-inches on Record Store Day. And I always tell people not to freak out about it because, yeah, you might wait a little bit. But most of the transactions, because my staff member Aria and myself are the people that hand out the records when everybody waits in line, we try to be patient with people and give them a moment, but realistically it takes like 15 or 20 seconds for each customer to be like, oh, that's great. Here's this. And here's another one. Okay, cool. Have a nice day. And so it actually goes pretty quickly. And with all these kids that want, or people, I should say, that are just here for a Taylor record, it's just, I want the Taylor, and then they're gone. It's like a 5-second transaction.
So do you find that any of them will sort of be like, well, while I'm here, give me that Don Cherry, or the Bill Evans release for this year or something like that?
Yeah, I'd like the 3LP Cecil Taylor to go with my Taylor Swift.
What's the Jerry Garcia box this year? I'll take that too.
Exactly. Not so much. Although mom and dad might, which is cool.
Yeah, but I mean, like I'm just sort of wondering whether Taylor Swift lifts the boat for the record store days for stuff other than this Taylor Swift record.
So record store day in general, with whatever your thing is, if it's a hip hop record, well, for younger people, I would say, or people that are new to record collecting, it doesn't even have to be younger people, but if somebody, heck, people in their 40s now grew up without records, I would say. Initially, right? You're listening to music on iPods and streaming and so on. So if people are new to record collecting and they're just geeked to have like a Cher concert or I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
does that happen?
Any random thing, it gets people interested and they find it fun. And then my hope is with, anybody buying a Taylor Swift 7-inch or somebody buying a somebody's buying a Cecil Taylor record is going to already seriously be into music. But, these folks that are new to it all, it just inspires them to keep on coming back to record stores.
So I should note that Tim and I are sitting in the back where he would stand, and there's a window that looks out onto sort of room 2 of this 3-room or 3 storefront store. And so this is where you would stand, and you get to see everyone too and hear what everyone wants, which is kind of, as a store owner, I imagine that's probably helpful for you too, just to sort of know what everyone's tastes are, because there's so many faces that are familiar to you.
Yeah.
And you're also surrounded right now by boxes stacked right just to my left and Tim's right are 4 sets of record boxes filled with record store day stuff, and a lot of copies of a lot of stuff, and then very few copies of other things.
That's 1,000 records, by the way.
1,000 records just on the side.
Yeah.
And then also behind you as well, or is that
no,
more?
that's on top of. Yeah.
How many records did you get for Record Store Day this year?
Well,
and I know that some haven't arrived yet.
Yeah, some have not arrived yet, which is a thing, of course. Everybody talks about things being allocated and they wait in line and they can't get them. So we've gotten the bulk of the stuff that was easy for the record labels and Record Store Day officials to dole out to us. And the allocated stuff is always the stuff that comes. So the hottest stuff is the stuff that comes in at the last minute, where they're just like, okay. And they go over it with a fine-tooth comb. They're like, and this store gets 1 copy, and that store gets 3 copies. It's kind of a strange thing. It really comes down to the record store, the folks that run a Record Store Day, Carrie and Michael, I think. Yeah.
So who's making those decisions and sending you the records? Is this a matter of you have a handful of distributors and you get everything from them, or do you have deals with actual labels? How does it work?
It can work both ways. Primarily, there are 2 huge distributors that most of the stores in the States deal with. I order from both. A lot of people just try to keep it simple and order from one. I got really screwed over a number of years ago, maybe our second or third year of doing Record Store Day. And one of my distributors just completely bailed. I put all my eggs in one basket, basically, and ordered 80% of my stuff from Baker and Taylor, and then they just decided right before Record Store Day they were going to stop doing records, and they didn't tell anybody. And so suddenly, with like 2 weeks to go, I had to scramble and try to find records.
Year.
Yeah, that was rough. There were a lot of titles that we just didn't get. So anyway, I try to not put all my eggs in one basket anymore. So we primarily order from 2 distributors. And then if you really want to get into the weeds, you can start contacting labels independently. Most labels don't sell directly, but a handful of smaller ones do. Yeah.
So of these 1,000+ records that are here, they're almost all from these 2 distributors?
Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So are you dealing with a person there who you're saying, hey, I need a few more copies of this Yusef Lateef or Pink Floyd or whatever it is?
Exactly. Like we'll do an initial order. So things have really changed in the way they have us place our orders. For the longest time, maybe the first decade of Record Store Day, you had to keep everything a secret. They would give the stores a list, and you were not allowed to talk to customers about it. You're not allowed to post anything about it, what have you. Let the cat out of the bag. And so we had to order blind, which was just terrible.
Wow. So they didn't reveal, because now they reveal the list in like February or something like that, and then you'll sort of put up a note saying, "Hey, let us know what you want." So
Exactly.
So you weren't able to do that then.
No, so you think you know your customers, and you say like, "Oh, we don't really sell any hip hop around here. We sell very little. I'll get one of this hip hop record, and maybe somebody will come in and want it." And then 20 guys walk in and be like, "Oh man, do you have such and such?" And I'll be like, no, I just got. Where were you guys the rest of the year?" Or I think, "Oh, everybody likes the Rolling Stones," and I'd order 15 copies of a Rolling Stones record, and suddenly nobody cared. I'd sell two. So about a decade ago, they started saying, or maybe 8 years ago, they allowed us to talk to customers and get feedback. So we see the list on the same day that the public does.
Right.
We don't have any intel beforehand.
Were they not revealing the list? Back then, were they just not revealing the list? And did you just have to show up at Record Store Day and see what there was, or would they reveal it?
There was kind of a lag time.
Beforehand?
Yeah. I want to say maybe a month beforehand. They just say, "This is what it is." And then...
But you would have already ordered by then.
Yeah, we would have already ordered.
Crazy. And
so when you said, can you go to your distributors and say, "Give me some more of this and some more of that," then I'd be frantic. And I'd say like, "Oh, now suddenly people are coming out of the woodwork now that the list is out. Can I get this and that and the other?" And they say, "No, they've all been ordered and accounted for." So this change is a really, really good thing. So we typically only order what people ask for. 80% is that, I would say. And then 20% is just Aria and myself going through things and saying, "You know what? Somebody's going to want this. This is very cool."
Right.
And or we hand sell it,
So in terms of the number of records you order, is that something that's gone up over the years? Does it kind of go up and down depending on the year? Is it sort of steady?
Well, it's certainly amped up over the last decade, but I want to say the last 3 years have been about the same quantities. We bring in about the same quantities. We move about the same quantities. This year is a little bit stronger. We've ordered more things, but the list in general, people were more excited about. That's a whole thing too, is excitement around Record Store Day and the hate around Record Store Day, because I have lots of I would say it's almost 50-50 with my regular customers, people that are psyched and be like, "Oh, that'll be really cool to see this, Talking Heads demo or whatever, or listen to this Talking Heads demo." And other people are like, "It's just pumped up and a bunch of bullshit, and I don't know why everybody wastes their time with it, and I'm not gonna partake, and blah blah blah." And I've won over a lot of those people. I was like, "Just come by. Like, I know you, I know your taste. There's records that you would like. Just swing. You don't have to be here in the melee in the morning, but swing by, and you can probably enjoy this, Bill Evans record or whatever."
The hunt of it is kind of fun, and the waiting in line in a weird way, and being among a bunch of fellow record nerds and talking to the people, about what they're getting, but not wanting to reveal like the one that maybe you only have 2 copies of. The sense of community is kind of fun. And often I'll come in later in the afternoon, and you know this because I talk to you, and I'll be like, "Hey Tim, so how'd you do?" And you're like, "Oh, it was great." And then I'll kind of look to see what's left. I'll be like, "Yep, that one's still here. That one's still here." I actually like that whole ritual of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I'm glad. I feel like in this day and age, a lot of people just don't engage with other people. I mean, there's all this engagement on social media, but it's a really different thing to like go out and have a beer with 3 friends, or to hang in line and talk to people where, or even like if you go to a concert, I feel like people don't talk to the people next to them usually. You know what I mean? You're all there to see the same performer, but do you strike up a conversation? Some people do. I think most people don't. So, but I do see those conversations happen on Record Store Day with at least 50% of the people. A lot of people are still reserved, of course.
Yeah, and I think also someone who's into records, it's kind of a self-selective group of maybe sort of having an old school sense of values of, I don't know, you like the physical thing and you like to talk about it, as opposed to you're listening to something with your AirPods or earbuds. It's just a very different way of experiencing music. Whereas generally, if you're putting a record on a turntable, you have to sit in a room and experience it in a way that's a little more, you're not doing that while also walking your dog.
Exactly, yeah. For some reason, that comment made me think about the age range of people who come to Record Store Day. Generally speaking, at this record store in this neighborhood, our average age is probably 35 to 55, I would say, of shoppers, and a really nice balance of men and women, for sure. That's changed dramatically over the years. I started working in record stores in 1989. And the guys were always the music heads, and the guys would come in and want all the stuff, and we rarely had women shopping at the stores. And I'm really glad that that's changed. It's a lot more welcoming to all people. But age-wise, Record Store Day generally brings out that same demographic that shops regularly, but the demographic that pops up that we don't see on the regular is all the teenagers. And the teenagers are just young people, let's say 15 to 25 or something, that are just really excited to, try to finish a collection or something that they've been streaming like crazy, and they can't wait to get it on the physical media. So that's the hardest group to order for because they're not our regular customers. So the regular customers, we know kind of the types of things that they like to buy, and our regular customers give us feedback in that time period in which we're ordering. There aren't 14-year-olds to say, how many copies of the Biba Doobie record are you going to get? How many copies of the Gigi Perez are you going to get? And so that's a challenging thing for me when I'm placing these orders, and where online is somewhat beneficial. I'll kind of get into Reddit or I'll get into YouTube and listen to young people talk about the kinds of things that they're psyched for. And that definitely helps me to order, and it's been really helpful the last couple of years. But then again, some of those people may never show up. I'll order 5 copies of something that I think is going to be the new pop thing, and it just sits there.
In general, what's better, to order too much or too little?
Sadly, too little. Because too little means that you'll sell out of them, and then you're not left with stock. And that's just the nuts and bolts of the financial side of it. And if you order too much, then you basically kind of lost your shirt. I mean, most not lost your shirt. That's a
No, but
that's
there are
dramatic.
definitely record stores I go into, and like months later they'll have the RSD file, and it'll be much bigger than I expect it to be, like a lot of leftover stuff.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I probably spend 40 hours, like an entire work week, going through the list and debating 5 of these, 8 of those, 2 of these, 1 of that. Like, I spend a lot of time choosing the quantities that come in and doing deep dives. I try to listen to everything, even though a lot of these things even though a lot of these things are previously unreleased, pretty much it's all on YouTube. Like if it was, I remember a while back, there was a Yorma acoustic set from like 1965 at a kitchen table or something. It was there on YouTube. I mean, or some of these things have just been streaming and not in physical media. So you can get a sense of most things. Anyway, I spent a lot of time making these choices, so I err on the side of, just what, we could sell in a week or so, a week or two. And then, of course, we always have, 50 titles left or whatever. But the markup is not that great on this stuff, which is kind of stinky. I know a lot of people say, like, oh, my God, it's $50 for this double LP, or I can't believe somebody wants $30 for X, Y, and Z. The stores don't make that much profit on it, so say, you've got a third of your titles left, you've lost money. Or if you've even got 20% of your titles left, you broke even.
And there are no returns on any of this.
And there's
stuff.
0 returns on the stuff. So I'm not trying to make this a sad sack moment.
No, but it's tricky for you guys. That's why, you have to spend a lot of time calculating this.
Yeah, exactly. So really, it's a great deal of work, and a lot of stores have bailed on it. A whole lot of stores have bailed on it after all these years because of the work involved and the frustrations with the customers being like, oh, what do you mean? I told you guys I wanted this. And we said, I'm sorry, we got allocated too. The anger and the frustration from the customers and the time spent on the store. But I see it very, very differently. When I was talking about kids buying Taylor Swift records, or fans buying Taylor Swift records, inspiring them to get more records down the road, I think that's a huge benefit to stores, and that sticks with the original notion of Record Store Day. I think that it's a fun day for the community. It's really hectic here, and a lot of people will call up and say, hey, what events do you have going on for Record Store Day? And most of the time, we dress in costume. We're grateful to the local venue Space that offers us tickets to give away, generally speaking. So we have some free ticket giveaways. We, dress up crazy, and then we've got all these great records. So that's a lot. Having, a food truck and, a local brewery and bands play, and we can't organize all that. That's a lot, right? This year is different, actually. We have 2 really fun and off the beaten path bands playing. One is a dungeon synth performer, which that pretty much is self-explanatory, and the other band is more of like an ambient drone band. And so I like to kind of...
Where are they going to be playing?
They're going to be playing in the third room over here. They're going to be set up. It's going to be very brief. It's at 4 o'clock for probably about 40 minutes.
So later in the day, not when you have the huge line in the morning.
Yeah, definitely later in the day, and it's going to be the kind of thing that will chase people out for... about 30. Some people chase some people out for about 30 minutes. And I'm kind of psyched about it because I like things that are not the norm. One year we all dressed kind of like Marie Antoinette era in crazy clothes. And when everybody was entering the building for Record Store Day, we had a string duo playing kind of Baroque music. So I like to do things like that rather than the most obvious, like, oh, this kid's got a 4-piece rock band and they'll bang out some tunes. I'd rather have an ambient drone thing or a Baroque, group do their thing.
Do you get a lot of people coming in and going, hey, I bought this record, but it's got a locked groove on side 2, and you're like, sorry, I can't, we don't have any more copies of it.
Oh, all the time. Yeah, I mean, the stuff sells out, and there are manufacturing defects that happen. I want to say there was a Billy Joel record last year that had an incorrect side. Some of the pressings went out with an incorrect side.
That was so funny because, it was that live 1982 Long Island one when he was doing the nylon curtain. And what it looked like, because I sort of geek out and read all the stuff online afterwards, like all these forums, like on Steve Hoffman and whatever. And it appears that record, and the reason there weren't that many, this is the theory on it, was that there were 2 vinyl box sets of Billy Joel records, like the early ones and the later ones. And each one had a bonus live record that separately ended up coming out on Record Store Day. And the separate one for this one, this Live on Long Island, was part of the second box. And apparently one side of one of the discs, I think the first one, was like a hip hop record by accident. And it was in that box collection. And the theory was that the label Sony didn't sell enough copies of that. Now, if you're with Sony and I'm wrong, you're welcome to contact me. But the theory was that they didn't sell enough of that box set, so they took all those remaining, like a bunch of those copies of it, and wrapped it up, and they made a Record Store Day release out of the remaining ones. And some of them still had that defect of the hip hop record on one side.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, so stuff happens, and there aren't, maybe there are clean copies of, not clean, but correctly pressed copies of that record out there.
I got it here, and it was fine. And I was surprised that I got it, because I think you only had 2. And the first guy in line goes, is anyone else looking for that Billy Joel record? And I was like 20 people back, and I was kind of like, I used to really like Billy Joel. That might be kind of fun to get. And I know there aren't that many copies of it, but do I want to say I'm interested? Because then maybe someone in front of me will be like, oh, well, if other people want it, I'm going to get it. But I did. I was honest with your group, and it was still there. So
awesome.
And it did not have a hip hop record on it.
And that's good. So stuff like that. Occasionally, there were 2 big problems last year. I can't remember. There might have been a Van Halen issue, or that might have been a year before or something. Anyway, Record Store Day does try to set up exchanges with the labels. Well, they'll print the correct thing, and you can, send your proof of purchase off to the label, and they'll send you the correct album in the mail. Like, say it's a 2 LP set, and they'll just send you the record, knowing that you've got the cover and everything.
So if someone brings you a record and it has an obvious defect, I assume you refund them. Are you able to get the money back from the distributor then?
No.
So you just have to eat that.
Yeah.
See, that's like another thing. That's not a fortunate aspect of your business. Like, you shouldn't have to swallow that.
No, but that's the deal with records. We also are a bookstore. We sell a great deal of new books and also lots and lots of secondhand books. But for instance, with the books, all the books are returnable, 100%. I mean, there's a small fee, like a 5% fee to return it or something, but that would allow stores with records, that would allow stores to do things. And I learned something recently I didn't know about the CD boom. Like, I was working in stores in 89, a chain store in 89, right when Nirvana Nevermind came out, I remember, and within a couple months. And we got 1 copy of the LP and loads of cassettes and loads of CDs. And then I never saw the LP ever again. And within months, the entire chain stopped carrying LPs. And what I learned recently was that the labels stopped accepting returns on records. That's the way they kind of forced the CD. And I had never known that before. They're like, we're just going to go full on CD. And so not all the major chain stores stopped carrying LPs because you couldn't actually return them, unsold stuff. stock.
The thing with a book also is that you're not going to get to page 189 and then have to read the same sentence over and over and over again unless you like lift up something and move it to another part of the page. So like the defects in a record are much more, I mean, there aren't that many, I don't think, defects in books that you're going to find. And if whatever they would be, they're not going to be as disruptive as you have 40 minutes of music and one song that you really like is totally screwed up.
Yeah, 100%.
So the idea that you have to eat that on Record Store Day on top of everything else.
Yeah. Well, luckily those things are few and far in between. Yeah, we have very few returns.
All right. Well, if I get anything on Record Store Day that has a mistake in it, I'm not going to tell you because I'll feel bad.
No, that's all right. No, we definitely want to make.
Tim's always been very
happy,
good about this. I don't complain that much, but sometimes you just get stuff that doesn't come out right. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, the store is Squeezebox Books and Records.
Yes.
So you started doing books first, or was it always the two together?
It was always 50-50. Yeah, we started. This is actually our 15th anniversary this year. We've been at it for 15 years, and we started in a smaller space. And about halfway, 7 years into biz, we moved over to the current space where we now have 3 storefronts. So we started out with 500 square feet of retail, and now we have about 2,400 square feet of retail.
And percentage-wise, I mean, because records have become more popular over those 15 years, have records become a bigger part of your business over that time?
It's always been a little bigger. It's generally been about the same. I want to say records are more like 60% of the business, and books are about 40%, just a little bit stronger with the records.
Did you always carry new books, or is that expanding as well?
We've been carrying new books for about 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
It feels like you have more variety on that too, but maybe that's just my perception and it's not true.
More variety with new books?
Yeah, it seems like you have more of a display of new books or array of new books than you did. But
oh, yeah, sure. It does keep on growing. Yeah.
And obviously you moved into that third storefront, so you were able to keep adding more records as well.
Yeah.
Is there a certain area of records that has expanded more, like whether it's jazz or just new releases or used vintage yacht rock?
Yeah, new records, for sure. That's kind of a sad aspect to things for me, that the new records sell better than the used records. I think a lot of it is coming out of the CD era and the streaming era, people that are new to records. I mean, you and I are of the age that we were happy to get a used record for $4 at the store back in the day, and it had a little crack and, crackle and pop and so on. And we're just kind of used to it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, understandably, if you bought a new album that had defects like that, you're like, hey, this is a new record. It should sound clean. But with the used stuff, we'll take a bit of that. And I'm really easygoing about that kind of stuff. I like to collect 45s, and some of them will be gray. But I still, it's like 30% noise and 70% music, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm not bothered because they're fun and they're unique. Anyway, I think a lot of people, you've got a $6 copy of Simon & Garfunkel's Greatest Hits or a $22 brand new copy of Simon & Garfunkel's Greatest Hits. And I think to the more casual buyer, they're like, ooh, well, that used one might be really noisy and it might skip a lot and it might blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just buy the $6 used copy. They're like, that's okay. I'll buy the $22 copy and be safe. So I think there's a little bit of fear of used records too.
Interesting. I mean, I think people are more savvy about it. I mean, I think you might be the person who put me onto Discogs. And so you could look up every edition of every record ever released, which pressing and how much it sells for. And
which is overwhelming.
And obviously you could just sort of get way into the weeds on it. I mean, if a record's, $20 and it's in perfect condition and you want it, you're just like, well, I don't really need to look this up on Discogs and see what the marketplace is and whether I could buy it for $18 plus shipping or something.
Right.
In general, too, I will say this as an endorsement of your store, the stuff tends to be in good shape. You'll often put on a note on there saying scuffs or surface noise or something like that. And there are other places you'll go and it's just sort of, oh, that looks great. And then you put it on and it sounds like popcorn.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, our notes we try not to use goldmine grading actually because a lot of people don't know what it is. So we'll just say has a little bit of noise or has some scuffs or something. And understandably, people think oh, it's going to be terrible and skip. And that's our VG Plus note. That's our VG or VG Plus note.
I think I told you this. I think it was in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. There was a record store that on the used records, if the price ended in 99, that meant it was excellent. If it ended in 89, that meant it was very good. And if it ended in 79, then it was, good or something like that. So that record at 1579, gave you more pause than the record at, 1999.
Oh, that's very strange. Yeah.
I thought that it was sort of like, wait, what? Because I was trying to sort of figure out like what shape. And it's like, oh yeah, and they explained it to me. So, I mean, I guess if you know it and it's your store that you're going into all the time, as opposed to when you're just driving back from northern Wisconsin, I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's also like, what?
I think condition takes a while to kind of get a handle on, and that's why some people default to new copies of records, new pressings of records. For instance, we just had a new employee start this past week, and I was going over grading stuff and purchasing stuff with her, and she was holding the record very gingerly. And this is somebody that knows a great deal about music, which is why she was hired. But she was holding the record kind of gingerly. And I said, okay, so looking at this 1970s pressing, there's a big white scuff over there. There's a couple white dots here and there. You want to just rub your fingers over it. You want to just like smear your thumb along that spot and see if you can feel it. See if it sticks up. If you don't feel anything over that big white scuff, it's not really going to create a noise. And she was very nervous. Like, this goes against everything I've been told about, you hold the edges of the record very carefully. You never, ever put your fingers on the surface. I'm like, oh, no. You gotta touch them.
Well, you gotta know if there's a piece of schmutz there that's gonna, that you could just sort of knock off, or whether this is like a defective record that you can't sell.
Exactly. Yeah. If there's a piece of crud right there, usually that's like the easiest fix in the world. You just, soak it in a little, wet towel for half a minute. It softens up and it goes away. Or you can flick it away with your thumbnail. And
you guys will clean your records either with a cloth or with the ultrasonic.
Exactly. Yeah.
You, as someone who obviously loves music, also owns a record store, so it's like someone who owns a chocolate shop who maybe doesn't need to be like buying chocolates all the time.
Yeah.
Are there typically titles that you think, oh, you know what, I'd really like to just grab this one for myself? And will you do it, or will you sort of wait till like a day has passed and like if no one's bought it, then maybe you'll just get it for yourself?
The latter, 100%. Yeah, there's personally... between myself and the staff, there's very few records that we take home. We're all music lovers here, and we all love a variety of music. So, we've got, one staff person that really likes the heavy indie rock stuff, another staff person that loves super pop stuff, a couple staff people that love really poppy things. So, and I like more obscure international music, things like that. So we're not really drawing from what the customers may want, and we always buy it after the fact. Like, the customers get first dibs on all of these things, 100%. And I've bought things on Discogs myself, the week that follows, because the distributors ran out, and I really wanted that Brazilian 45 box set, and I just, bought a copy for myself. Or I know a lot of the stores around town too. I'll call those guys too and say, hey, do you still have a copy of this left? Just like any other customer.
Do you get FOMO on any of this stuff, or are you really beyond that?
Oh, I'm so beyond it. Yeah.
I mean, I figure you would have to be, given what you do.
Yeah. I mean, one of the great notes that I read on Reddit when people are talking about Record Store Day and the anxiety around it, if you were being paid by the hour, like, just come in later in the day, see what's around, check out the vibe, be like, oh, that looks fun. Or I had read about these handful of things, and oh, here's one of them. I'll take home this one thing. And it kind of saves on budget. And I think the FOMO too that people have sometimes, it can kind of break the bank. Where you're like, oh, I really like jazz, and I want to get these 3 jazz records, but I really have always wanted to hear these alternate Fleetwood Macs. Oh, and there's this other, like rare Brazilian side, and I want to grab and suddenly you've got $300 worth of a purchase.
I know how that happens. Though I don't think it's necessarily driven by FOMO as much as, my expanding tastes and going, oh, that sounds cool. That sounds cool too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But me. But I'm sure there's also, with me at least, I'm sure there's some FOMO in there as well. Part of it is that sort of sense of, you waited in line and there's this little window in which you can buy this thing, and you got in the window and you bought the cool thing. And if you'd waited till tomorrow, you couldn't have bought the cool thing. And I guess that's where the FOMO comes in. But it also is a way to just raise your blood pressure and stuff. It's not the healthiest way to approach art that you love.
No.
But sometimes it just creeps in because the game aspect of it is also kind of fun. Like, you get so few victories in real life, maybe, that getting a copy of that record you want is, qualifies as a way to boost your mood for at least a little bit in these dark times.
Yeah. Yeah, record shopping still, it's like that silly Peanuts cartoon, like record shopping always lifts my spirits. And whenever I go on vacation, within 24 hours, I'm at another record store, and I'll send a picture to the staff, and they're like, what are you, crazy? You're here like so much. Why wouldn't you just, sit on the beach and read a book? Why are you in a record store right now? But I love it. I love finding things. I love digging things up. It's still really, really fun to me, discovering things. But also the FOMO thing, if I go to a record store, I'm happy to be in there for 10 minutes. I will just choose a random section. I will go through and look through the L, M's, and N's of the jazz section. Right. And if I find a record in there, I'm like, cool. I don't feel like I have to look through the whole thing.
Or there might be some buried treasure that I need to find, and I need to go dig through all these crates, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll choose a couple I'll ask them where their international records are. I'll ask them where their easy listening records are because I like grandpa music. So, yeah. So
for this year's Record Store Day, do you have a sense of what, there's like the limited quantity, large demand? Like what are going to be the things that those first people online are going to go for?
There's no telling, honest. Because the first 5 people in line, one person could be really hot for Wax Trax records. There's a My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult record.
Nice.
And, psyched about that. Somebody else could be psyched. There's a live Wicked record. Somebody could be psyched about the Wicked. So it's just, there's no telling what the first people want, or they want that super limited, Cecil Taylor record, to bring that up again.
I mean, I know that you're waiting for some stuff still to come in, but are there any titles that you thought, oh man, I'm just getting so little of this one, so few of this one, and there's going to be demand for it?
I hate to let the cat out of the bag, but I do this anyway. I mean, when people show up in line that morning, I try to post what we got the night before, at least title-wise. I usually don't post quantities, but that morning I get out pretty early and talk to everybody, and I say, what do you want to know about quantities? And they say, how about this? How about that? And I'm like, well, we got 6, we got 2. And if they're at the back of the line and we got 2, I'm like, if you want to jump ship and go somewhere else, you're probably not. If there's only 2 copies, you might not get it. So the 2 things that come to mind right away, there's a Charlie XCX 7-inch single that we ordered plenty of, and we got very, very few. There's still more coming, but I think that's going to be way more limited than the demand will be. And we knew that there was going to be a decent demand, but that just didn't come. The other thing for, I think, people of our shared interest, is the Campervan Beethoven Tusk record.
Right.
So they covered Tusk in a really funky way. It's great. It's a really, really great recording.
Yeah, I have the CD of it from when it came out, and I've interviewed 3 of the members about it, I think.
Yeah. So they finally put it out on an LP, and a lot of people asked about it, and I think we're going to get 2 or 3.
I see 2 copies on the shelf.
So more,
right what I'm looking right now.
Yeah, more might be coming, but that was one that we had a huge demand for. I mean, huge. These. Well,
I'm glad
it's
the
all relative.
Beethoven is getting some demand. That makes me feel good for those guys.
Yeah, but I want to say we had 10 people ask for it.
Yeah, you want to get more copies of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'll send them a note saying, hey, get some more copies over to Squeezebox.
Thank you.
When they listen to the episode, they'll be like, okay, we're on it.
They can drive it over here as fast as they can.
What did you get the most copies of?
Oh, it's Hilary Duff. Believe it or not,
mine.
We got so many requests for this Hilary Duff record. So Taylor Swift did all of her Taylor's versions of songs. So Hilary Duff I think these were out digitally before, but she compiled all these little EPs of some of the tunes she did back in the day, her own new versions of them. And that we got a huge amount of requests for. We got a lot of Jeff Buckley live. That's the white one right there. We got a lot of requests.
Yeah, I see Buckley there, and then next
Buckley.
to it, a lot of these Bowie outside excerpts, it looks like.
Oh, yeah. The Bowie records, and the red record is Bowie as well. Bowie always sells well, for sure.
Bowie always does a lot on Record Store Day.
Yeah.
I like that sort of alternate Ziggy Stardust they put out a few years ago that had a few different songs.
Yeah.
I always like that. Actually, I wanted to go over with you a little bit kind of these genre of Record Store Day records.
Sure.
And you can maybe give me a sense of how they do or just your interest in them. One of them, which seems like it's the biggest subset, is the live record.
Yeah.
A lot of live records, including, my favorites, XTC and The Dead and Pink Floyd. And I mean, you could just look through a lot of jazz live records as well. Blur, live at Budokan. Some John Coltrane, Dinosaur Jr., Bill Evans, who's always at Record Store Day, Fall Out Boy at Madison Square Garden. That one says it has 20,000 copies, so that must be a big. Foreigner 4 live.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could keep going. A bunch of jazz stuff too. How does the live stuff do?
For the record, I hate live records. That's just me personally. But as a store owner and trying to get stock that people like, for me, it's all about kind of the right era. Like, is it live from the peak of the band? So, for instance, the Floyd, and as a record store owner, I've heard popular records again and again, and I don't ever really need to listen to them again. But the Pink Floyd's kind of cool. It's a live performance of Animals before Animals was released, or some of the songs.
A couple of songs.
Yeah, a couple of songs from Animals, and Dark Side of the Moon, which, I think a live version of Dark Side, I've never heard it. I might not, because I'm not crazy about live records. But that's a really cool thing. There's a Ramones live from 78, like right at their peak too, and so on. The jazz records I'm more excited and I'm happy to listen to personally, because that's the notion of jazz, is that it's typically improvised and the live setting is great for that kind of thing. I'm not bothered by that. Personally, and the jazz records sell very, very well, and I think the rock and other things just depends on the era it came out in. I know we have a Stray Cats live record, for instance, that a lot of people actually asked about, and Stray Cats were a really tight band for sure, or are. I guess they've still toured recently. But it's from 2004, so you either get they've been doing it for a long time and they're super tight, or like, did you really want like a 1985 Stray Cats? Maybe that's more what people would want. So, well,
yeah, and it's like I don't want to dog anything, especially some of my favorite artists. But like, there's a Brian Wilson on tour record from 99 to 2007, I think it is.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I mean, I know even people who have been in that band. It's a wonderful band, but I just don't, that like when I want to hear peak Brian Wilson personally, that's not what I go to. Is like seeing him live at that time was very moving.
Oh, sure.
But wanting sort of a souvenir of that for myself and listening to that instead of the vintage stuff. But I'm not. If you love Brian Wilson, go for it. I'm sure it's wonderful.
Yeah. And there are people that really stay in their zone musically, right? So if you're a Pink Floyd head so a Dead head, that's a great example, right? A huge fan of the Dead and Jerry and all that stuff. So people are just geeked to get another show on LP that has never been on LP before. They've been on, like Dick Spick's CDs and certainly cassettes through the years and all that. So they're like the Dead shows, these, 3 and 4 LP sets always sell very well.
Yeah, it seems like every record store today, there's like a multi-LP box set of The Dead and Jerry Garcia. Mm-hmm. They have one of each.
Yeah.
And you usually sell out all of those?
Yeah, for sure. The Dead sells better than Jerry. I personally like Jerry Band better than I like The Dead. But, yeah, they always sell really well.
All right. Here's a category that is not my favorite, which is picture discs.
Mm-hmm.
How do those do?
At this store, they do so-so. I think picture discs definitely appeal to a new crowd, people that are new to records, and they find it really fun that it's got, this image or that image. And there's a lot of zoetropes, which are picture discs. Personally, I'd rather have a picture disc than a zoetrope, because the zoetrope is just it's a circular animated scene that you can't really see with the naked eye. You have to have an app on your phone, as I understand it.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I've never gotten one.
Yeah, I haven't either. But I understand that you have to shoot it with like an app on the phone or an aspect of your camera or something. And it's kind of cool. Like, there'll be an animation of, things dancing around or aspects
I didn't realize
of
you needed an app.
Or aspects of the original album art. I mean, because zoetropes back in the day were some of the earliest animated things.
Right.
And they were generally done with a mirror, and you would kind of focus, on one small part as the different frames essentially roll past. So they've pushed those really hard lately, and people honestly are pretty excited about them and have fun with them and so on. But it is a new collector vibe. The more gimmicky aspect of things. The picture disc can have really, cool things on it, for sure. And
I think it sort of depends. If you're like a sound nerd, you're not going to go for the picture disc because they just tend to not sound as good. But if it's sort of like, I remember when I was a kid and there was a picture disc of Sgt. Pepper, and I'm like, oh my God. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, yeah.
So in terms of a cool object, I don't I mean, I'm not turning my nose up at it. It's just not when I'm waiting in line and someone, you know, in front of me orders a picture disc, I'm like, well, great. You know,
I mean, honestly, it's been a very long time since I've listened to any. Well, I haven't really listened to any of the new picture discs, so people could chime in about this. But my impression is too that the sound quality has improved greatly. Definitely the ones from the 70s and the 80s were pretty mediocre.
Yeah,
I think that's changed a great deal.
Well, that was true. That was thought with colored vinyl too, but some colored vinyl sounds just as good as black vinyl, and so I'll still do it. But I guess that's another subset is like this album available for the first time on yellow vinyl or something like that.
And splatter wax, things like that. People will say, some people will say, oh, I can hear if it's, say, red and white striations. They're like, I can hear the light ticks between the red and white striations and the splatter, you know. I don't know if that's true. Maybe they've got a really high-end system and they shouldn't buy splatter records.
There was that one a few years ago where it was like the Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed. And I think that each one was like hand-poured different, you know, colored vinyl thing, and they sold for it priced at like $100 and something.
Yeah,
and
it was very expensive.
That one just annoyed me. I just was like, I was
that one annoyed me. Yeah. There was that's a subgenre you probably didn't write down, the annoying record store day records. The first one I can think of was a couple years back. They did a John Coltrane 12-inch. So it was a sampler from an upcoming box or record set. So one longish song on each side, say an 7 or 8 minute song on each side. But the tunes themselves were only about as big as the record's 12-inch. The tunes might have, the grooves might have been 7-inch or 10-inch or something. And they had these two giant triangle cutouts on the outer rim of the record. So most people's record players, when you hit start, a really basic intro player, will go to the beginning of the record, and there's a huge hole there. That's just going to rip your needle right off of your player. I was like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Wow. This sharp triangle cut into the wax.
Why would you?
At the beginning of the record.
Yeah. I don't get that at all.
Yeah.
I got sort of sucked into one last year, and honestly, I really buy stuff because I want to listen to it, and I shouldn't even admit this one, but it was that Wu-Tang Clan one from last year. It was like a new album, and every cover was like different.
Yeah, Black Swordsman.
Yeah, Black Swordsman. And I just thought, well, that's like so cool, and so I just bought it. But I've never opened it because I wasn't that interested. I mean, I like them all right. I mean, I do have a couple Wu-Tang. I mean, I'm not totally like, I never opened it. And I'm just like, that was silly that I bought that. And, and it might be, maybe the resale value is up, but it's like, I like the idea that records I own are valuable, but I've literally never flipped a record. Yeah. Like, I haven't done it yet. Uh-huh. So, and I'm not gonna just like go on new seller. Here's this Wu-Tang record that I probably would sell for about what I bought it for. So I don't know. It's just silly. I do. So that's like me getting sucked into the sort of maybe the game aspect of it when it's really, stick to the music that you love.
Yeah. And even as a record store owner, I fall prey to that from time to time too. It's just, I think so many people that love music buy too much. Just because you're so geeked about things, and there's always that pile to be listened to. And the one I remember is I didn't get, or I sold out of a 3LP Sun Ra set. That I really wanted. And as I remember, it was small. It was either Sun Ra solo or like a quartet. It was like a smaller group thing. And when Dave's Records was around, Dave still had it here in Chicago or Chicagoland. And, I was so excited to buy it. It's still sitting sealed on my shelf. And that was probably 10 years ago.
Wow.
I know. I was like, I gotta listen to that Sun Ra.
Do you think that there are record store owners that basically will set aside the ones they think are going to be valuable and then just come back a year later and sell them like for twice the price? Because I know that there are limits on what you could set the prices for. And you by the way, are very reasonable in what you set the record store day prices for. There's some stores that, and I won't name names, that notably charge more than you do.
Right.
But I'm also wondering whether there are stores that, you'll see them on Discogs or something where there will be like a copy of this record for twice the retail price, and it's from a brick and mortar store. And I'm like, well, where did that come from?
Well, technically, we have very strict rules. In order to participate in Record Store Day, they lay out a lot of things. Like you can't pre-sell anything. You can't set things aside for people. They have a suggested list price, and you can't go more than, I think 20% might be the rule. Can't go more than 20%, which is substantial. If the list price is, say, $100 and you ask $120, that's a That's a big window, right?
Yeah.
But that's still acceptable. But if you've got a $100 list priced item and you sell it for $200, they can flag you and say, sorry, we're not going to sell you product anymore. So I think not a lot of stores, a handful of stores do fly under the radar doing this kind of thing, flipping them the next day on eBay people are pre-selling these records on eBay. That's been a thing for a long time. So say, the week before or something, a record that might be $40 the day of, they'll pre-sell for $120.
Yeah, so that's wrong.
And just kind of like hoping to dupe somebody like everything on record store day is rare, when in fact you probably go for days and get that record for $40.
There's the deluxe record.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, like John Wesley Harding, Here Comes the Groom is coming out with an extra record of bonus material.
Yeah, yeah.
There are a few of those. The Who, actually, quick one,
Mm-hmm.
that has a record. It's like the mono pressing plus a record of the singles and B-sides. And
the first Little Feat record is like that as
and
well.
That one too, right? Yeah, two-record deluxe set.
Mm-hmm. Those sell really well, I think, and it's a great idea. I almost like it better than having an outtakes and demos kind of version of a standalone version of things. I mean, it's been done a lot where you can, get like the alternate Rumors or the alternate Tusk or what have you. But I like when they're combined like this, because if you're in the mood, you don't have a clean copy of that first Little Feat, you can, which is actually a very difficult record to find, the very first one that's got the building on the cover.
Right.
You've got a clean copy you can listen to, or if you're in a different mood and want to listen to the demos and the alternate takes and so on, they sell really well. And especially when they redo the original album art. I think this changing of the album art sometimes is really annoying. Yeah. The
Joni Mitchell for the Roses is like, here's the original album cover she wanted, and it's rose-covered vinyl.
Okay, I will actually stick up for that record.
All
right. I noted this actually
because that's one that's on the list. So.
Yeah. So it's okay. It's kind of a dumb idea. It's got one of these simple Joni line drawings that kind of looks like the cover of Crosby, Stills and Nash Hits, and it was her original art, and it's got a donkey's ass on the cover.
Yeah,
basically.
like the music's coming out of it, I think.
Yeah. So it's kind of humorous. I know we got it here somewhere. Also, that's my favorite Joni record, I think. It's one of. I've got probably 3. That's one of my favorite Joni records. I think it's For the Roses is such a great album, and it's kind of a hidden version of, it's like Blue Part 2. It's not poppy. It's got the vibes of Blue a lot. I always try to sell it to people as, the extension of Blue in terms of its sound quality and stuff.
So when you were saying that when they're changing the art, you don't go for it, you're accepting this one.
I am.
But there are other ones that bother you.
Well, we just, you have a bad photograph that's like photoshopped, and it's like the world's worst designer kind of changing things around. Yeah.
So yeah, and you sort of mentioned to it, but yeah, there are the alternate versions of the record, and then there's also the demos record. So, I mean, like Talking Heads, they've been mining a lot of their really early stuff on Record Store Day, and now you got this double record of their super early demos.
Yeah.
So, which I've not heard. I know that some of that's come out on CD as well. I've loved that's one where those live RSD records have sounded fantastic. Because they were just such a hot live band. And the name of this band is Talking Heads. Is such a great record.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've not heard this set of demos as well. Yeah, the deluxe classic, and then there's like the old albums you've never heard of.
Yeah,
where it'll be some, like Gandalf, a few years ago, or
my God,
this year.
Good.
A Gift from Euphoria by Euphoria, which has nothing to do with the TV series. It's like a 1969 folk psychedelic record.
Yeah. That's my wheelhouse. I like stuff. One of my wheelhouses. I like stuff like that. So I'm excited about that record. Hasn't actually arrived yet. It should be here soon. Well, on that note, one of the ones that I really like in these kind of obscure reissues is Ike White. Ike White, the record's really hard to find. It got reissued. It's like a early 70s, say 73 to 75 kind of R&B funk record. It's so good. It's basically like my favorite Sly Stone is that era, like 73 to 75.
See, there's usually, so listeners, just so you know, I usually go into Tim and I say, all right, what's the one record that's not on my radar that I should be like looking into? And usually Tim will suggest something and I'll be like, oh, that's cool. So this, although now, if you can get in front of me online and pick up this Ike White, but it sounds like that's that. Cause I didn't know anything about Ike White.
Yeah, it's great.
When's it from?
Early 70s. Yeah. And it sound like the recording is good. It's big. It's full. It's got background singers. Go out there and stream it. Listen to it.
There's a quote at the bottom from Stevie Wonder. There are many Ike Whites in this world. Let's give these men a fair, making not the color of his skin his final fate for being behind bars.
Oh, that's...
So wait. So special thanks to Superintendent Jerry Enomoto, California Department of Corrections.
There you go. See, I'm so caught up in the music, I forgot about the story behind it. So I think it was made while he was behind bars. Yeah.
And produced by Greg Errico, the drummer for Sly and the Family Stone.
Oh, well, there you go. See? I'm so taken with the music on a lot of these things.
All right, I got to check that out.
That the details elude me. Sometimes the backgrounds and the details elude me.
Anything else that's on your sort of, picks to, look up that you don't?
What else? Yeah, there's an Ivan Lins record. Ivan Lins is a Brazilian performer who I think got more popular in the 80s, and his music's kind of a little smooth then. But this record is from 1974, and it's stunningly beautiful, kind of like Brazilian MPB stuff. I think Caetano Veloso's on it, and yeah, maybe some other Brazilian players. But he's a great songwriter. A lot of people sang his songs as well. So that's a really cool one. There's a Zamrock record by the Ngozi family. They've been very popular with the Zamrock thing, which is rock and roll from Zambia in the 70s. They had a pretty strong scene of just like 4-piece, 5-piece rock bands. Prince Buster, one of the kind of founders of ska and reggae and blue beat. There's a Prince Buster record. These are all things that just never come around secondhand and often aren't in print at all.
Yes, you know what comes through and what doesn't as well.
Exactly.
So and sometimes I'll pick your brain on it. You'll be like, oh, I never see this one. So I'm like, oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, Steve Albini, lots of Steve Albini fans across the country and the world, but especially here in Chicago. There's a record that he did with this noise band called Zini Jiva that I'm kind of psyched about. That should be pretty cool. What else? The soundtrack to the Swamp Dog movie, Swamp Dog Paints His Pool.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to find out a little more about Swamp Dog.
Yeah.
He's on my radar.
Yeah, it's a Swamp Dog. Lobby Sifri reissue. Lobby Sifri I've always really liked, but he blew up. He's most famous for Eminem sampling him for My Name Is.
Okay.
Yeah. But that kind of like funky, groovy Rhodes piano kind of vibe. But he's a stellar singer-songwriter from the UK that, imagine Cat Stevens if Cat Stevens was 3 times as good.
Huh.
Like, that's Lobby Sifri. Lobby Sifri is so good. And he's still around. I think he's putting out a new record.
Right. Another one to look up.
Yeah.
Yeah, another genre is the various artists compilations.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I totally went on the ska kick by buying Studio One rockers from you years ago. And then Studio One just Soul Jazz, the label, tends to put out these Studio One collections.
Yeah.
A lot of the record store days. So they have Studio One Sound, which I think is a compilation from 2012. The Stax Killer Bees. There's a Power Pop one that I think Soul Jazz is putting out too.
Yeah.
I think Shoes Tomorrow Night is on there. That tends to show up on a lot of Power Pop compilations. Great song. Gary Glebe was just on. Any of those, do tend to do well, or are those the ones that maybe fall, Jazz Dispensary does theirs every year too? Yeah.
I would say Jazz Dispensary comps sell the best for sure. The compilations are a difficult sell at any record store. I actually completely got rid of my compilation section at the store and just started filing the comps alphabetically in the, rock section or the R&B section of the jazz, because it was the only way people would bump into them. You're flipping through the Monk section and you see many good jazz songs on this record or whatever. You bump into it randomly and then I begin to sell them. But if they were at the end of a section, everybody would bypass them.
It's a funny thing because it's like I've bought a lot of these various artist things from you on Record Store Day, but I very rarely go through the compilations bin, like I would going through other stuff. If I hit it in the new releases, or the just in bins, then I would maybe be like, oh, that looks kind of cool.
I am a huge fan of comps because basically they're just playlists, right? I mean, that's the way people listen to music a lot of the time these days anyway. And so it's a curated playlist, and they're great fun, but people generally blow them off. The Stax Killer Bees looks really fun. That Caropop comp you were just talking about, the Shoes was the only band that I recognized.
Yeah,
on that
I didn't
comp.
know them either.
So they're digging deep. People are really trying to go and find interesting, fun stuff that you've never heard of before. And it's just fun to put on, a variety of stuff like while you're cleaning the house or during your workday or however you listen to records.
Yeah, there was a High Records one a few years ago, and it was like a mix from some Japanese DJ, and so it had all this kind of Japanese print on it. Mm-hmm. But it was basically just all these sort of funky dance tunes from the height of the High Records time with, Al Green and Ann Peebles and Ovi Wright and Syl Johnson.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. And that sort of got me on to, then finding some used, records by Ann Peebles and, Syl Johnson and everything else. So they could definitely, be your entree into, more things for you to dig into.
Well, I think it's an entree to a new genre, too. So, for instance, if you've got a reggae comp, like the new Studio One comp, again, a lot of obscure artists on that Soul Jazz Studio One comp, and I can't even place the eras. So I'm thinking it's probably a mix of 60s and 70s, which is cool. So you're hearing all different styles of reggae where everybody thinks like, oh, reggae always sounds the same. It just, is like Bob Marley and I don't like it. But you've got a different vocalist on each track. Some are instrumental. Some are highlighting like a trombone as the main thing. The next one's got a group of 3 women singing. And so it shows you the breadth of the music, and the same thing with the jazz comps. Like we got a Giles Peterson comp, who's one of the biggest tastemakers in the UK. He's had a show on BBC for 30 years. He's kind of the John Peel of today. A Giles Peterson comp of this European jazz label called Timeless, which had a lot of major players on it, and he's just kind of cherry picking these interesting 70s kind of spiritual jazz things where listening to one performer for 40 minutes might start to put you to sleep, but mixing it up with 5 minutes of this and 7 minutes of that is a lot more interesting.
Well, that's what the jazz dispensary ones are so good at, because they'll hit you with these soul jazz things. And I guess the one that the one now is sort of a Brazilian one.
Yeah, they put a different stamp on each one. Some are kind of
like summer songs or nighttime in the city. Or
my favorite one was a disco one. They were just kind of like cool disco tracks, more obscure disco tracks, and then they've had kind of a blaxploitation comp, and I don't know, they've done a whole variety of.
It's usually pretty colored vinyl too, like
that's
some
true.
Sort of swirly. I mean, that's definitely one where I'll pull it out and my wife will be like, ooh.
Well, the covers are great too. There's an instance with cover design. I'm very particular about cover design because at the store we have to display all the new releases, and early this year or last fall was just miserable because every new band put out some sort of gray, black, brown smear of a record cover. There was like nothing poppy that stood out. I think everybody sits at home and looks at their laptop while they're designing these things and be like, ooh, this is moody with this black and white photo. And then every band does the same thing and the wall just looks terrible.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to ask one last question.
Sure.
You've just been put in charge of Record Store Day, and you can make one change. What would it be?
Interesting. One thing that I have honestly tried to do in giving feedback to my distributors who then give feedback to Record Store Day. And Record Store Day, the people that organize Record Store Day have regular Zoom meetings and so on throughout the year too with stores. I've tried really hard to push the idea of a quarterly Record Store Day. During the first year of the pandemic, there probably wasn't a Record Store Day. And then they were a little unsure when it was going to be. They'd prepped a lot of records and so on into 21. And somewhere in there, the dates were all kind of wonky. But they decided to do 4 in a row quarterly, thinking like, oh, we'll do it smaller.
They did 3 RSD drops, and then they did the regular Black Friday. So it kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, it was kind of quarterly, time-wise. And that was absolutely the best year for us because it's not as overwhelming I told you that we just brought in over 1,000 records, and title-wise, there are 350-ish titles on this particular list. And we don't necessarily even order all 350 titles. We probably ordered 200-plus titles. There's some things that just aren't of interest here. But that quarterly thing works so much better for customers and their budget. And it's just like a little kind of something to look forward to every couple months. And it was just quantity-wise and budget-wise for the stores easier to deal with. That year was fantastic. So I think that idea fell flat. They liked the idea of one big blowout on, in April and then its little sister on Black Friday. So that would absolutely be the number one thing.
Nice. What percentage of your overall annual business does Record Store Day account for?
Oh my gosh, I've never actually.
I mean, is it significant or is it really just like?
No, it's significant. I mean, in the big picture, considering there's 365 days in the year, right? I mean, I would say that one. Well, should we talk about April and Black Friday together?
Sure,
the two record
we'll do the
store
two
days?
Black Fridays. You could break it down if you want, but certainly the idea of what Record Store Day does for the record store.
It actually is kind of huge. I'd never thought about this before, but it's probably between 8 and 10% on 2 days, which out of an entire year, because we're open 7 days a week.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy it. I will see you on Record Store Day, of course.
And we will surprise you with our costumes.
I'll be surprised with your costumes, and I will try not to have any FOMO. I'm just going to be chill this year. Thanks so much, Tim. It's
Thank
really
you,
great
Mark.
talking to you. That's it for episode 221 of Caropop. Thanks so much to Tim Peterson for giving us his retail perspective of Record Store Day 2026, which is Saturday, April 18th. Go to recordstoreday.com for the list of more than 350 Record Store Day releases, which should be available at a record store near you. Squeezebox Books and Music is located at 43 Main Street in Evanston, Illinois, and opens at 10 a.m. on Record Store Day. Squeezebox Books and Music has a Facebook page where the store posts its complete RSD list. Squeezebox Books also is on Instagram. Support your local record store and I'll tell you what I'm hoping to get as long as you're behind me in line. Caropop is produced by Chris Swake, who also says no to FOMO. Thanks to all who support Caropop. If you'd like to throw something into the Caropop kitty, we'd be much appreciative, and I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Please go to caropop.com. Thank you so much for listening and being here. I'm Mark Caro. Please follow Caropop on the so-called socials at Caropopcast. You can follow me as well at Mark Caro, at MarkCaro. Please share this episode, subscribe here and on YouTube, tell your friends, and return next week for another Caropop conversation. Thanks.